Our final presenter has a column that started in the Barbados Nation in 1993 and continues to appear in the Jamaica Gleaner, Caribbean News Global, Caribbean News Now, and the online Toronto Independent. His column with the punchline, "Tony Deyal was last seen," was featured in the Trinidad Express and Kaiecha News for the past 26 years. He has published 2 collections of his articles. Tony Deyal was last seen in 2021, and a cricket compilation, Blades of Grass and Glory, in 2022. Let us please welcome our final presenter, Mr. Anthony Tony Deyal.
Well, thank you very much, folks. You could call me Tony. I don't know if you know Capachaima. Okay, well, I'm dealing with Capachaima first because, after all, we're into an environment here where we need to look a little bit closer. Now, in the 1940s and 1950s, the railway station, remember it, was the hub of activity in Capachaima. The Deluxe store, owned by B.M. Singh, a.k.a. Sonny Boy, occupied the eastern side of the junction where Railway Road connected with Waterloo Road, the main thoroughfare through well, it was where you come from St. Mary's Junction, know that? And from St. Mary's Junction, you reach Jerry Junction and you turn left, and then through Capachaima and Waterloo, and you end in Orange Valley. My Uncle Ben had a combination of parlor, shop, and gambling club in an old wooden building opposite Sonny Boy shop, and just after the village mosque and the brand new Muslim school. For me, even though I walk past the railway station twice a day on my way to the Capachaima East School, the real center was our house. We lived on the left before Roopson Road, at the side of which the engines pulling sugarcane-filled wagons passed on their way to the Macbean factory, and almost opposite of what we knew as Sadhoo shop. At the time, the shop's owner, Siewdass Sadhoo, was not the historic figure he later became. He sold rum and dry goods, had the only rice mill in the community, and had packed up his first wife for a new and younger lady named Samday. I used to hang out there a lot with my hero, my Uncle Jacket. They used to call him Jacket Man. And although I know now that when people say Sadhoo wine, they refer to the wife of the Sadhoo. But I was confused, not knowing whether they meant the cobweb-covered cherry brandy on the shelf in the shop, or some kind of errant behavior on the part of the holy man when he filled the front of his bicycle with rocks and masonry tools and headed west. I had the opportunity a few times to accompany Sadhoo to Orange Valley, where he was building a kutia, or temple in the sea. For whatever reason, perhaps because I was a mannish young fella, Sadhoo liked me and used to hoist me up on the handlebar of his bike and take me with him. I pretended to help him, but really spent most of my time playing in the sand on the seashore. Yet Sadhoo was not the star of our little community. In fact, he was often derided for trying to build a kutia in the sea. And people thought he was off. My Uncle Jacket, with his cattle, bullcat, jokes, and ability to consume copious amounts of alcohol and remain standing, stood out among the residents. That is man. Next to us was Owen Ali, a famous Indian dancer who was of African descent, openly gay, and whose scandalous laughter could be heard quite by Jerry Junction, as we said in those days. Owen was also a notorious gossip and would detail, without being prompted, his most intimate adventures, whether as a dancer, performing in Guyana or elsewhere, and his sex life. Heading west, the building before Sadhoo shop was what we call the barracks, but will now be considered an apartment building. One of the tenants was Marajin. She was the first person I knew with a television set. She had lived in the United States and ended up in Capachaima. There was many years, that was many years before Trinidad had a television station. But a few of us had read about this marvel, and so Marajin will uncover the big lacquered box with curved gray glass in the front, a descending row of big knobs, and a contraption she called an antenna for us to gaze at longingly. We watched a TV even though there was nothing showing on it, you know. Yet, big and sexy as she was, Marajin was not my star. Neither was Major, who regaled us with stories about Boise Singh, or even Mr. O'Connor, we called him O'Cano, who was such a cricket fan that he was angry with the West Indies, and when the West Indies lose the match to Australia, he said, we boys don't play cricket, we boys just play cricket in the day. We bound to lose when they put we and have we playing in the night. And he complained angrily, and supported by knowing that from my father, yeah boy, and my Uncle Jacket and others. But my boy, and it tells me Capachaima is the most, in many cases, the best mix of a country, a place I've ever been to. My boy was Donkey Arthur, who lived in the apartment behind Marajin. He got the donkey, added to his name, because every carnival he came out with what we call a burukit mask. He spent hours doing the wire bending and then gluing together all the strips of brightly colored, sparkling decoration on his costume. We call it a donkey, eh? But in fact, it looked more like a golden stallion, and Arthur danced it with flair and obvious enjoyment. One year, Arthur was persuaded to play jab-jab. And knowing how much licks would pass from whip, stick, and bull pistol, he wanted to be well prepared. He wrapped himself in tubes from a truck tire, 2 from car tire, a leather goatskin, a thick blanket, an old jacket from my Uncle Jacket, and then he put on his costume. He started perspiring heavily even before he tottered out of the yard. And after 100 yards, he was bathed in sweat. Before he reached the railway station, Arthur started to strip. His way back home, where he grabbed a bucket and ran to the standpipe to cool himself, it was littered with what I call Arthur's under armor. Long afterwards, he told my father, he said, Mr. D, not me again. He kept his word, and for what I heard from my cousin Joe, Arthur became one of the legends of Old Mass. He was last seen, honestly, playing the donkey in the Point 14 Juve. This one, I call it sadder but wiser. And it is about Capachaima, which some people say it's Capachaima, and which my aunt used to call Capachaima. Yeah, same thing. And this will go with my friend's discussion just now there. It's called Sadder but Wiser. S-A-A-D-A, Sadder but wiser. We call my uncle's wife Kaki. At least that's how it was pronounced. Since my older cousins called her Kaki, I had no choice but to follow, even though it sounded and felt odd. Cars were rare, but I had seen my uncle Kaki, and my aunt bore not even the slightest resemblance to that shiny metal object. The pants I wore to school as an integral part of the uniform were khaki pants. And the Guyanese friends of mine pronounced that material and the color as khaki. But we in Trinidad say khaki. My aunt was neither made of that material, nor was she of that complexion. She was dark-skinned and her name was Moon, as distinct from my father's sister, who was called Moon, and pronounced the same way as the place on which the astronauts landed. My father's brother called my mother Chotki. Never having seen a chot before, I had no idea what a chot was and why it required a key. Then there was Didi. She was my father's eldest sister. I had learned my ABC and I knew about D, but not a double D. My Muslim family were Chacha and Chachi. And my grandfather, in whose house in Oropuch I was born, occasionally thanked me with Acha Beta and called my mother Beti and my aunt's newborn baby. And that my uncle Partap used to go with his friends to swim in the bay. And that got my grandfather so upset that he told Partap, he said, if you go and drown, don't come back and tell me nothing here. It was perplexing growing up in an East Indian household and interacting with a cosmopolitan community for whom English was the official language. I was born in 1945, and just as khaki is the word for aunt-in-law, Mousy is the name for aunt, and not a little mouse. And Mousa was she husband, and not a rat catcher. It was perplexing. I had a khaki named Moon, and a Mousy named Moon. What made it embarrassing is that the male gender of khaki is kaka. In Trinidad and in many other countries, that is the term applied to faces. It was a problem calling one's uncle Kaka even among the family. In public, or referring to one's uncle as Kaka among children of African or other descent, invited ridicule and ribald humor. Mousy's husband was Mousa. I never got right whether my uncle Jacob was Mousa or Mamu. I know my cousins called my mother Mommy. I called her Mom. And when she told me to shut up, I kept mum. In other words, mum was the word. Grandfathers were Nana, and grandmothers were Nani. Except we called my mother's father Ma, my mother's mother Mama, and my mother's father Papa. And although my nana and nanny did not ride bicycles, despite what Sundar Popo said, or indulge in behavior that was overtly sexual, I still had grave reservations about using the terms in public. What I knew was that given I was going to school, where we had to hide and eat our sada roti, I preferred the term aunt, uncle, grandfather, and grandmother. There were other relations like sarubai that I was never too sure about. I mean, Daru is Hindu for rum, and Bai is brother. And since my father spent a lot of time drinking with his relatives, they were more Daru than Sarubai. In those days, I did not realize that because family was important to Hindus who grew up in extended kinship communities, there were specific names for each of the different relationships. It is very similar to the different names Eskimos have for snow in various stages. Snow is vital to their existence, and it is important for them to be able to distinguish among snow that has melted, is melting, or has just fallen. They have about 60 words for snow. Hindus have even more for family and relatives. Food was another problem. Carrying our roti in the days before rotis developed skins, with our curried or fried vegetables in it, was a source of serious discomfort for many of us, especially those who attended schools in the city or the prestige secondary schools, and I was in presentation, and I'm from South. And I had my fried roti with egg and plantain, or my sada roti, essentially an unleavened bread with bodhi, aloo, or baigan, and generally ate it with my head immersed in the greasy brown paper in which I had transported it to school. To show my lunch among my classmates, most of whom were not of Indian descent, was to invite ridicule. I once had my salmon-filled fried roti dragged along the class, my sixth form class, by two of my classmates, to the applause of the rest. Names were also problems. When a little kid came to school for the first time and told the class that his name was Bhim Singh Sudhu Singh, it prompted loud and prolonged laughter. Pushpawati was another one she named. Jagannath Ramkilawan Singh created problems of spelling and pronunciation, both for him, who had been given the name, and all the other children, including those of East Indian descent. Dancing and music were mindfuls. The European tradition of the waltz and the foxtrot, the Afro tradition, bolero and calypso, and the Spanish Castellan were all incompatible with the Indian wine that fittingly accompanied tassa, drumming, and chutney singing. Regardless of how adept kids were at whining to the Indian music, they were made to feel foolish and totally inept if they were unable to dance to the beat of the dominant Anglo-African culture. Now, I had written this. You want to guess when? I had written this in 2020. So I go back. This is changing as Trinidad and Tobago celebrates its 38th year of independence, as 2020. Chutney music has made whining to Indian music an almost mandatory activity for most Trinis. Sada roti with vegetables can be bought almost anywhere, even in the cafeteria, the government office, building to which I labored. Diwali, Eid ul-Fitr, Indian Arrival Day on Tuesday coming, and Emancipation Day joined at that time Christmas, Boxing Day, and Corpus Christi as national holidays. Most people knew or know the significance of Diwali than they know Corpus Christi. Children share lunches instead of burying their heads in the desks while eating. The only thing that still needs to change is the definition of relationships. Perhaps we need some more precision in the Hindi version of the English language. My father's sisters and my mother's sisters are my aunts. My father's brothers and my mother's brothers are my uncles. I think maybe we need to Indianize the process and call our father's sisters or fonts, and our father's brothers or uncles. Similarly, we will have monts for mother's female family and monkles for the men. Unfortunately, we will still catch our nannies and our nannies to differentiate between our grandparents on our mother's side and on our father's side. Tony Deyal was last seen explaining to his wife that the lady she saw in his vehicle was really his khaki.
Thank you, Mr. Tony Deyal. Any comments and questions for him at this time?
Tony, you bring back some memories for me. Because when you talk about Capachaima, see, I went to school there in 1951.
Whoa.
And you must have known a teacher there called Teacher Bunsi.
Of course I know Bunsi.
That's my brother.
Oh my gosh.
That's Paul's uncle.
Yeah, he was, he used to go on his bike.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
I had the last shot of carrying him with the bike,
Oh.
taking the train, going to presentation,
Uh-huh.
and I had the last ride in the train too.
Oh my gosh, I remember him so well.
Now, you talk about Capachaima. My boss, Mr. Ramsing, used to say Capachaima.
Yeah, this was said.
Yes. You see, I taught down at Orangefield Hindu.
Oh, okay.
And then we have Ali James in Waterloo, the Bagwandins in Waterloo. Those are my area, my Paul's father, Waterloo Hindu.
Whoa, well, in those days was
Right. Now I want to ask you, are you any relationship to the cricketing Deyals?
all of we Deyals from Capachaima.
Well, those are my friends. Because
Yeah.
cricket is my religion.
Well, kind of all of we
Right.
owners.
And it's so nice. Heard about you, read about you, see you on television, whatnot. It's so nice to see you today.
I appreciate that.
Nice.
man.
All the best, Tony.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Tony, you know I'm a big fan, but this was amazing. Your reading was really amazing. What amazes me about your writing is that you use so much humor, you use so much puns, there's so much to laugh at in the midst of issues that are so very serious. So you have this way of bringing humor, but at the end of the day, having an extremely serious message. And I find that phenomenal. I have a question, but before I get to the question, I want to say to you, I was brought up at a time when I called my aunts and uncles auntie and uncle. Didn't have no problem though with the roti and the names. In school, I went to Lakshmi Girls, and eating roti and thing that was everybody had that, so it was not a problem. But when I had kids, interestingly, my kids call they use the Indian words. So my sister, they call her Mosi, they call her husband Mosa, and well, the rest of what you said, right? So that happened, and it happened because my parents influenced that. So they didn't influence me to do it, but they influenced me to have my children do it, and their grandchildren also now do it. So something happened, and you talked about it for the end, where you say that now the Indian wine is no longer ostracized, but it's become a national wine. The Sadhoo roti is now served in the Hyatt and the Hilton. So that something happened, and from your research and all of this, what would you say caused things that were seemingly so embarrassing and so shameful for at a particular point in time have now become so vogue, and we all, we all boast when we bring international food critiques to Trinidad, we're taking them for the doubles, we're taking them for the Sadhoo roti. So something happened, and in your thinking, or have you written about this, what would you say that you can account for this kind of transition and this kind of embracing of our Indianness? And while I appreciate the difficulties in name, because I still think even though there are Indian names, and then there are Indian names, and as parents we should attempt to, because all my kids have Indian names, but I was very careful in terms of what the words meant. I was conscious of things like how people would pronounce it, trying to make that kind of balance to ensure that I could be authentic to what I believed in, while in addition ensuring that it was presented to the world in a way that they would also embrace it. So, I think I've put in a lot of things, but please respond as best as you can.
I understand you very well. Trinidad has two different directions. One is the political, which determines everything. And increasingly, the gap between people of African and people of Indian descent has widened. It's got bad. But at the same time, what you're saying there is true. When I go Capachaima, or if I go Siparia, where I used to live, or there is still a lot in common. And what helped with roti, in fact, or what happened, and I have an article I wrote about that, what happened to Dalpuri and roti, because inevitably we want people in a way that is different from the politics. We still get along. I have a real problem because I have family who from pure black to pure white and all between. And as far as Kamala and them are concerned, I against them because I told them they were going to lose the election 23-18 and they didn't believe me. And the PNM has stopped me from doing my column in the papers here. All 3 newspapers. So, but in between, despite all that, I have friends. I have like 5,000 people read my article just in Trinidad and I have people all over. And it is because I am a Trini, but I'm also a Caribbean person. And it seems to me that bit by bit, and if we have the right way of dealing with people, they will deal like that with us. I'm sure the communities we live in will live well together. It is an interesting kind of situation where at the political level, which determines everything, there's so much. And at the ordinary people level, we are still people who care about other people. And it doesn't worry me so much as it upsets me, because I grew up in Siparia, that's still mental home with, and we still know one another. And it was people of all kinds of races, Capachaima too. And I hate to see that disappear. And I wrote this in a way for people here to remember what we came from and where we're at. Thanks. Sorry, I talked too much.
Yes, Tony, some for the young aspiring authors, right? Writers. In terms of your style, it's a unique style, this blend of humor, but underneath it all, there's a message, Any advice, any guidance for the aspire? Because it's unique in a way. What shaped it?
Reading. The only thing that saved me was reading. From 3 years old, I still must read before I go to sleep. And what reading taught me is that, my mother they married her off at 12. When she went to the guy's house, he already had a wife. Her parents didn't want to take her back. My father was a drunk. And so she had me at 15. And when all of that was happening, I always had a book. I always had something to read. And I learned a little bit more from that. I learned, I used to go to the cinema in Superior. And my writing, I have a strategy. I write generally for the people in-house. But I put in, like Shakespeare did, a little thing for the people down in pit. And I do a little bit more for the people up in balcony because I know they want some serious stuff. And when you do it that way, you can then, that's my style, that I write for everybody, but the core things is for the people in-house.
Okay, thank you. Well, now there's this rage about artificial intelligence and the latest craze, ChatGPT, but I don't think ChatGPT would ever be able to imitate a Tony Deyal. Thank you.
Thank you.